INFJs are some of the most emotionally giving people you'll ever meet. They care deeply, even when they don't show it. They listen, support, and try to understand others on a level that most people miss. But even someone with a big heart has limits. And when an INFJ reaches their breaking point, something changes. It doesn't happen overnight. INFJs usually hold on for longer than they should. They try to see the best in people. They give second chances, and sometimes third and fourth. They don't give up easily, not on people, not on relationships, and definitely not on someone they once opened up to. But there comes a point where the emotional weight becomes too heavy. When the pain keeps repeating and nothing changes, they stop trying. And when an INFJ stops caring, it's not loud or dramatic. It's quiet, calm, cold. That's what makes it so different. You won't always see it coming. There may be no big fight or final goodbye. Just a slow shift in energy, a silence where there used to be connection, distance where there used to be closeness. This change doesn't mean the INFJ is angry. It means they're done. Something inside them has shut off. They have disconnected from the part of themselves that used to pour energy into the relationship. The part that gave, listened, and hoped things would improve. When that part goes quiet, you're no longer dealing with the same person. This moment is serious because INFJs don't stop caring easily. For them to emotionally detach, it means they've already fought the battle inside. They have questioned everything, overthought every detail, and come to a place of emotional exhaustion. And once they get there, turning back is rare. This video will walk you through the key signs that show when an INFJ has finally stopped caring. These signs are clear if you know what to look for. And they come with a message. The INFJ isn't being cruel. They're protecting themselves. They have decided their peace matters more than fixing what can't be fixed. Sign number 1. Silence replaces conversation. INFJs are natural communicators, even if they don't always talk a lot. They usually check in, send thoughtful messages, and take time to listen. They ask how you're doing. They remember what matters to you. And when something's wrong, they'll try to talk it through. But when they stop caring, the silence starts to take over. At first, it might seem like they're just busy. They don't respond right away. They don't reach out like they used to. But over time, the pattern becomes clear. The texts get shorter, or they stop replying completely. The conversations become rare. They no longer ask questions or try to keep the connection alive. This kind of silence is not about giving someone space. It's about stepping away from the relationship emotionally. It's not the silence of needing a break. It's the silence of someone who no longer wants to explain, fix, or invest. What used to be shared, thoughts, feelings, hopes, is now kept inside. The INFJ has started putting up walls where there used to be bridges. It's a quiet exit. Not out of spite, but out of protection. They're no longer offering their emotional energy to someone who didn't value it. And if you ask them what's wrong, they may not say much. They have likely already said it before, more than once. And at this point, repeating it feels pointless. They know they were unheard before, and now they've stopped expecting anything to change. That's why the silence feels final. To others, the silence might seem confusing or passive-aggressive. But for the INFJ, it's a clean break. Not physically, maybe. But emotionally, they've started pulling away. Not with noise or blame, but with silence that says, I've had enough. Sign number 2, emotional withdrawal. NFJs are emotionally tuned in. Even if they don't always show it outwardly, they feel deeply. When they care about someone, they open up slowly but meaningfully. They'll share parts of their inner world, talk about their feelings, and show vulnerability. But when they stop caring, that emotional connection fades, and fast. You'll notice their energy changes. They used to be warm, responsive, and engaged. Now their tone feels flat. Their words are short. They stop showing emotional reactions. What once felt like deep connection now feels like a cold distance. They stop sharing what's on their mind. Not because they're hiding something, but because they no longer feel like it matters. If they used to tell you when they were upset, now they keep it to themselves. If they used to open up about stress, fear, or dreams, now those conversations are gone. The INFJ doesn't see the point anymore. They don't trust the space to be safe or worth the effort. So they retreat, not in anger, but in detachment. It's not a wall built out of hurt. It's a door that has been quietly closed. This emotional shutdown can be hard to understand, especially for people who are used to seeing the INFJ as open and available. But once the INFJ reaches this point, they're done carrying the emotional weight. They no longer feel connected. They no longer want to keep trying. And the hardest part? They probably still feel everything, they're just not going to show it. The emotional switch flips from share to protect, and once that happens, the relationship starts to feel hollow. You're talking to someone who once cared deeply, but now feels emotionally gone. When the INFJ gets to the stage, it's usually not temporary. They've been holding on for a long time, and now they're letting go from the inside out. That's why the change feels so real, because it is. Sign number 3. They stop trying to fix things. ENFJs are natural fixers. They don't like unresolved problems, especially in relationships. When something feels off, they're usually the first to notice. And even if they don't say it right away, they'll start working quietly to bring things back into balance. They'll ask what's wrong. They'll apologize, even if they're not sure what they did. They'll try to understand your side, explain their own, and look for a way forward. They want harmony, not conflict. And they'll put in the emotional effort to make things better, sometimes too much. But when they stop caring, that effort disappears. The messages stop. The check-ins stop. The long talks stop. And most importantly, the emotional labor stops. They no longer feel responsible for the connection. They don't ask how to fix it. They don't try to explain how they feel. They let the distance grow, and they don't fight it anymore. They may have tried before. Maybe once, maybe many times. But after a while, they get tired of being the only one trying. They realize the other person doesn't want to meet them halfway, or isn't capable of it. And once that realization sets in, they stop holding the relationship together. This doesn't mean they've stopped feeling. It means they've stopped believing anything will change. They've accepted that the effort is one-sided, and they've made peace with walking away emotionally. What used to be a priority becomes background noise. You might notice that they stop responding to emotional tension. If you're upset, they don't ask why. If you're cold, they don't try to warm things up. They don't chase, explain, or apologize. Not because they're angry, but because they've accepted that nothing they do will make a difference. This shift can be hard to face, especially for people who relied on the INFJ's emotional energy to hold things together. But the INFJ knows their worth. And when they stop trying to fix the relationship, it means they've finally chosen to fix themselves. Sign number 4. Indifference to your opinions or actions. INFJs usually care deeply about what the people close to them think and feel. If they're in a relationship or friendship, they want to know how the other person sees the world. They listen closely, remember small details, and respond with thoughtfulness. But when they stop caring, that emotional investment vanishes. Suddenly, your words don't seem to reach them. They don't ask follow-up questions. They don't engage in the same way. You might be talking about something important to you, and they just nod or stay silent. They're physically present but emotionally checked out. This is a clear sign that they've started letting go. Not out of rudeness, but because they no longer feel connected. What you say no longer impacts them the way it used to. Your excitement, your complaints, even your compliments, they land without effect. It's not that they want to hurt you. It's that their emotional channel is shut down. The connection is no longer active, so they stop tuning in. The effort they once gave to understand and care about your perspective is now being saved for themselves. This indifference also shows up in how they react or don't react to your actions. Maybe you used to get a response when you were upset. Now they don't react at all. Maybe you try to make them jealous and they don't flinch. You cross a boundary and they don't even bring it up. That silence speaks volumes. In the past, they would have cared. They would have said something. Now, their quiet is not confusion. It's clarity. They have decided you no longer get that emotional reaction from them. You no longer hold that space in their mind. This stage can be shocking, especially if you're used to the INFJ being emotionally available. But once they hit this level of detachment, they're no longer trying to change the situation. They've emotionally stepped out of the room, even if they're still standing there. Sign number 5. They cut emotional investments. One of the strongest signs that an INFJ has stopped caring is when they cut off their emotional investment in the relationship. INFJs are planners, dreamers, and feelers. When they care about someone, they imagine a future with them. They talk about shared goals, future plans, or what life could look like together. They build emotional bridges into the future. But once they stop caring, all of that disappears. They stop making plans with you. The long conversations about someday are gone. They no longer talk about trips, holidays, or future memories. The vision they once held of what could be has been erased. Not because it didn't matter, but because it became too painful to hold on to. This isn't done out of revenge or bitterness. It's a form of emotional survival. INFJs know how much damage false hope can do. So when they stop caring, they also stop hoping. They let go of the future they imagined, and that changes everything about how they relate to you in the present. You'll notice the difference in small ways first. They don't ask how your week is going. They stop remembering important dates. They don't talk about next month, next year, or even next week. It's like the timeline of your connection has been shortened down to nothing. They also stop being emotionally generous. No more thoughtful messages, little surprises, or deep check-ins. The warmth is gone. The effort is gone. The connection has been placed in the past, even if they haven't said it out loud. What makes this shift so powerful is how quiet it is. There's no announcement. They don't need to explain. They just stop feeding the relationship. And without that emotional fuel, things begin to fade, quickly. This is one of the hardest signs to witness, because it shows that the INFJ has made a private decision. They have decided their energy is better spent elsewhere. And when they reach that point, there's rarely a return. Sign number 6. They let go of emotional responsibility. INFJs often take on emotional responsibility in relationships, even when it's not theirs to carry. They feel what others feel. They anticipate needs. They try to fix tension before it becomes conflict. They smooth things over, calm emotions, and take on more than their share of the emotional weight. But when they finally stop caring, that stops too. They no longer try to keep the peace. They stop apologizing for things they didn't do. They stop taking on guilt that doesn't belong to them. And most of all, they stop feeling responsible for someone else's emotional state. If you're upset, they let you be upset. If you're angry, they don't chase you for answers. If you create drama, they don't try to solve it. They simply watch it happen and keep their distance. At this point, the INFJ has made a clear emotional decision. This is no longer mine to fix. They've likely spent months, maybe years, carrying your burdens alongside their own. They tried to help you feel better. They tried to understand you when you didn't understand yourself. But over time, they realize that care without balance turns into emotional exhaustion. When they stop caring, they take that emotional energy and turn it inward. They begin to protect their peace instead of yours. They prioritize their own needs. They let go of the idea that your problems are theirs to solve. And for the first time in a long time, they breathe. You might notice this shift when they stop reacting to your moods. When they stop showing concern about things that used to trigger them. When they become calm, not because everything is fine, but because they've detached. This isn't spite. It's self-preservation. INFJs feel deeply, but they're also wise. And once they realize that caring is hurting them more than helping you, they make the only choice they can. They let go. This moment is quiet but powerful. It means they've reclaimed their emotional space. They're no longer holding up the relationship by themselves. They have walked away, not always physically, but emotionally. And from that point on, the energy they once gave to you now goes back into themselves. When an INFJ stops caring, it's not a small thing. It means they've already gone through the heartbreak. They have already tried. They've already hoped, waited, and given more than they had to give. So when the silence comes, when the connection fades, when the warmth turns cold, know that it didn't happen suddenly. It happened over time. Quietly. Internally. The INFJ isn't being cruel. They're being honest. They're choosing peace over pain. And they're choosing themselves. If you recognize these signs in someone you know, don't ignore them. And if you're an INFJ who's gone through this process, know that you're not alone. You're allowed to stop caring when it's hurting more than it's healing. Thanks for watching. If this spoke to you, feel free to share your thoughts.